Hey guys, what's going on? Hayden here. I want to talk about the future of the Zelda series, but I am not alone. I am joined by a very special guest, Mason of Delfino. Go ahead and say hi, man.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
So, thank you, of course, for joining me. I'm super pumped to have you.
Oh yeah, no problem. Thank you for the invite.
Yeah. So, unless you've been living under a rock for the past few months, or past few weeks, I guess I should say, Breath of the Wild has come out to basically universal acclaim. People just love this game, and I think it's safe to say that both of us love this game too.
Oh yeah.
Um, but I kind of want to talk about the future of the Zelda series because it's going in a very different direction now. Ayanuma has come out recently and said that open air is the new standard for the Legend of Zelda series, at least for like the mainline games, which excites me very much. And I kind of wanted, I thought it'd be fun to get together and talk about like what we might want to see stay the same, what we might want to see change, and all that good stuff. But first of all, let's just talk about our opinions about Breath of the Wild. So Mason, what is your overall opinion of Breath of the Wild?
All right. Well, first, let me just start out by saying I wasn't actually the biggest fan of it in the beginning because, I started out with Wind Waker HD on Wii U, and that was my first Zelda game. So it wasn't. I'm still kind of recent to the series, still kind of new to it, if you will. But as time went on, I just didn't realize I was stupid and tried to just get through the story. But exploring is where the fun is actually taking place. And it took me a while to actually realize that just because I was so focused on trying to just, get to point A to point B to point C to finish. But there's just so much this game has and so much to explore. And I realized that the more and more I played through it, and 70 hours later, I beat the game and I only had like 14.5% complete or something. I'm like, are you serious? So there's just so much this game has, and I'm excited to keep exploring. It's an epic game though, like the bosses and everything. It's just great. I like the shrines, kind of like mini dungeons, if you will. And there's just a lot this game has to offer that I haven't even seen myself yet because it's just so expansive. So I love it.
That's actually really interesting. I think you're the first person I've heard that like your opinion like got better over time because
I guess you could say it switched. Ha! Just kidding. Okay.
Yes. Overused joke is overused. But yeah, that's really interesting because Breath of the Wild was probably the most hyped I've ever been for a game, like ever. I don't think I've ever been more excited for a video game ever. And of course, like I'm still playing it. I'm still loving it. I'm absolutely just enjoying every minute of it. Breath of the Wild is just, it's the game that I've wanted for so long. And I think you hit it on the head there with a few things. Like the shrines, I think are genius. I love the exploration. Just every little nook and cranny of this world has something to find and something to get excited about. Like if you see a tree that looks suspicious, guaranteed there's going to be something there for you to find, something rewarding. And I think that Nintendo has just really hit it out of the park with this game. I am completely in awe with what they have done with Zelda. And again, I'm really excited to see where they're going to go with this, because I actually, as much as I love the Zelda series, I will admit it did start to get a little formulaic with the last few entries. But yeah, I am super excited for what they have in store. Love Breath of the Wild. Oh my goodness.
Right. And it's just crazy, like nobody ever expected it to be this amazing. Like obviously it's Zelda, people get hyped, but the acclaim though, like just the critics and everything, they absolutely adore this game now. And while there have been reports of like minor frame drops or whatever, that's been overlooked by many people, which isn't normal. And it's just like people are going by like I don't want to say that's kind of spoilery, just like the story itself though, and just the gameplay, how you can cook. You can cook in this game, dude. Like, that's insane. You can go make some seared steak or whatever. There's just so much that this game has. And, it's overwhelming in the beginning. But overall, I see why everybody loves it, me, myself, I love it too now. And I didn't think I would ever say that after, like, the first 2 or 3 hours of playing. But, like I said, I'm, like, a noob to this series still. So it took me a minute to figure out what I was actually doing.
So I guess I will just say real quick, for those of you listening, there might be like spoilers in this just because, Mason and I have both beaten the game. We are going to be talking about things that we want to see improved based on what happens in the game. So there could be some spoilers, just an FYI. We'll try and stay as clear spoilers as we can, but just saying that could be a thing. But yeah, so I guess let's kind of get into the whole like nitty gritty of things. So like what we kind of want to stay the same and kind of what we want to see different. Now, I guess I'll start off with something that I want to stay the same in this game, and that is the open air gameplay. I love their take on the open world style of games with how it's, I guess you couldn't really call it open world because you are able to just climb up everywhere and then fly anywhere. The open air, it really makes sense using that terminology. And I definitely think that they need to stay with that. They really need to keep that openness. That's what's made this game so accessible. And like you said earlier, there's a lot to do. There's a lot like kind of presenting itself at you, just like begging you to explore it. But it's all very accessible to new players. It's very simple. You know, if you find a new piece of gear, it shows you exactly what it does. Or if you find a new ingredient, it shows you exactly what it does. So yeah, there's a lot going on, but it's very accessible. And I think Nintendo really needs to keep that accessibility, both with the inventory and with the exploring.
Right. I don't know. I mean, there's just like you. That is a very good point, though, because that's something new they're kind of attempting, with this. And I think that, I mean, they succeeded with flying colors, I think. But I'm pretty sure it's safe to say. But it's like on Metacritic, it was like what, the third best reviewed game or something in like the last couple of decades. Just I don't even know. It was something crazy like that. But that's a cool thing that I think they should stick around with. You're right about that. And also another thing. It's kind of in the flow of the storyline. I don't want to say what it actually is, but we'll put it as scenes you watch. Okay.
Yeah.
They're, in a way, it's like watching a TV show a little bit,
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to say as vague as I can just to avoid spoilers for anybody. But how about next time, they're great to watch. Don't get me wrong. And it's so great to see the character development and everything like that. But if they had playable scenes like this next time around, that would be interesting too, to kind of get a better feel for what was going on in said clip.
Yeah, I get what you're talking about, and again, I don't want to get too into it because I do want to avoid story spoilers as much as I can.
Right? Yeah.
But, I will agree that the story, I liked it. It was good enough. It worked well with you being able to tackle anything in any order you want. But I did feel a lack of character development just based on how the story functioned. And this game I think really set out to be more gameplay focused and more exploring focused, and I think it did that in flying colors, like you said. But I will agree, I would like to see a little more involvement in the story, which I still think is possible because there's some really great stories in some open world games. I mean, I'm not a huge person of the Grand Theft Auto series, but the Grand Theft Auto 5 story is actually pretty good. And that's a completely open world game. So it's definitely possible to make a good, engaging story with an open world style game. It's just Nintendo has to figure out how to do it.
Right. And I mean, I think they could have gone more in depth with that too, just like you kind of mentioned about the story itself. It was more gameplay focused, obviously, because I mean, look at what they have. They have 900 Korok seeds. They have 120 shrines. They just so much this game has, and not to mention the countless bosses that are wandering around the world ready to take you out. But it's just a matter of how often those things appear and how you go about that. There's just all kinds of things. But if they had a balance between it, if they put as much focus on the story as they did the gameplay itself, would that have impacted it? Would it have taken away from the gameplay because, development time and story, there's a lot of factors that go into that. But I feel like just overall, I mean, they knocked it out of the park. They could do it again,
Yeah. So I have a question for you. Have you played A Link Between Worlds?
Yes, I have.
So that's kind of what I'm thinking for a story for the next Zelda game, because I think that game did a great job of telling a pretty good story while still leaving the world mostly open. In A Link Between Worlds, for those of you who haven't played it, I won't get into the specifics, but you start out in the light world, you start out in Hyrule, you go through the first few dungeons, and then when you get to Lorule, or the Dark World if you want to call it that, all 8 of those dungeons you can do in any order you want. And every so often you'll get, every time you complete, I think it's every 2 dungeons, you get a cutscene of stuff that's going on, but it's the same cutscene regardless of which 2 dungeons you complete. So you're still building up to this final battle, final moment, but you're still able to explore in any way you want. And I thought they did a really good job. It's not the best Zelda story. I don't want to say it's impossible to have the best Zelda story in an open world game, but some of the best Zelda stories, in my opinion, come from those more linear experiences. And I think those
Right.
just work better by virtue of it being a linear game.
Right. And I think Wind Waker had a really good story. If they stuck to something like
Yes.
that, I think, it was very deep in a way. I loved it. That's like one of my favorite games. So obviously a little bit of attachment is sitting right there on me. But for Breath of the Wild, I always said, is this going to be my new favorite Zelda? I was pretty torn between that and Wind Waker, and I kind of just decided Breath of the Wild is my new favorite,
Mhm.
And it took me a minute to, pick that up just because I couldn't get into it. But once I did, and it's great. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, storyline is definitely something that could be worked upon, but like you said, it's probably not as important as the gameplay is.
Yeah, and I will actually agree with you there. Wind Waker is... I'm torn between Wind Waker and Skyward Sword as my two favorite stories in the Zelda game. I wouldn't say
See,
Skyward
I've never
Sword...
played Skyward Sword.
Oh, okay. I almost want to say Skyward Sword is better, I think, like, story-wise, just because I think that's what they were really focusing on in that game. I think Wind Waker was... There was much more of a focus on exploring the big open seas, and the story was great. I love the Wind Waker story. If Wind Waker's not my favorite, it's my second favorite. But anyways, getting a little off topic.
Right.
What is something else that you would like to see changed? I forget if that was my suggestion in the story, if it was yours. But is it my turn or is it your turn?
I think it's yours actually, because you mentioned the what was it? You were talking about you wanted to keep the open air, and I mentioned how
Yes.
changing the scenes and stuff. So yeah.
Yes, sorry, guys, we are doing this extremely casual. But something else I would like to see stay with Breath of the Wild's formula is... Okay, so I'm a little bit weird with the Zelda series, because I'm actually someone who much prefers exploring the world than actually doing the dungeons. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some dungeons in the Zelda series that I absolutely love, especially from Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword. Some of those dungeons were actually amazing. But dungeons are sometimes kind of a low point. Sometimes something I'm not looking forward to. Breath of the Wild, on the other hand, I think had some amazing mainline dungeons, and I won't get into the specifics of it. I don't want to spoil anything, but I will say three of the dungeons in this game I really like. One of them I absolutely hate. You might have an idea of what I'm talking about. The three that I do really like in this game, I loved those. Like, I love how, so again, I won't get into spoilers, but you can basically take on any challenge in these dungeons in any order you want. So staying very much in line with the open-endedness of Breath of the Wild. And I want them to keep doing that. I want dungeons like this, but I want them bigger and I want more of them. And I never thought I would actually be saying that, because one of the things I like about Wind Waker is how few dungeons there actually are. You can do more exploring, you can talk to the characters more. But with Breath of the Wild's dungeons, I think they did such a good job that I would love to see more dungeons like it, but bigger.
Right. And yeah, that's exactly it though. Like, those dungeons, I know exactly what you're talking about. They were amazing. There was one that I kind of didn't like myself, but it's just a matter of, you go about it in such a weird way, because for me at that time, it was like, oh, this is a whole new experience. That was my first open world game, Breath of the Wild.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I went into this blind practically, and I'm just like, okay, what do I do? Obviously the story kind of spoke for itself. You do this, you go do this.
Mm-hmm.
But once I got to said points, it's just like, okay, I'm freaking out now, because this dungeon per se, and I are about to have it out, And once you get into there, it's just like, what do I do now? But yeah, I mean, once you figure it out, it's just such a rewarding feeling though, because you get it done and you're like, oh wow, I didn't expect, this would be there. There's just so many secrets.
Yeah.
And I love that, and a lot of the, people know about the Sheikah Slate, obviously, in the game because trailers and all that, but that has an impact on the whole world, basically. That makes the game work, just, it has such a focus on technology and stuff, and that's just like with these dungeons, it's kind of the same way. I'll put it like that. But it's great. I love it.
Yeah, the dungeons, they're really cool because they make you look at every little thing going on in the dungeon.
Right.
And it's all about figuring out, okay, what does this have to do with this thing over here? And what is this thing in this room? It has to do something with something on the other side of the dungeon. It's really rewarding when you piece it all together. And of course, you're rewarded with a boss fight at the end, which I thought, some people said they didn't like them. I thought they were pretty good. There was one, again, I won't get into spoilers, but there was one that I had no idea how to beat it. And the thing is with like most Zelda games is it follows the convention of, all right, you get an item in this dungeon, you use this item to beat this dungeon, and then you use this item to beat the boss in this dungeon. But with Breath of the Wild, most of your main abilities are given to you right at the beginning of the game. So you're just given this arsenal of stuff, and then when you get to these bosses, you're like, all right, this is what I have. How can I use this to beat this boss? So that's kind of what I liked about it. Like, you had to figure it out for yourself. It wasn't, oh, I have to use the hook shot for something, like some way in this boss battle. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah, that's a good point though. There are a lot of things you can do. You can use a stick to beat up, a stick you find from a tree, or you can use like the Master Sword, like any other Zelda game, or if you have it, that is.
Yeah.
But it's just like you can do so many different things. You can use arrows. You can use bombs from the Sheikah Slate. There's just so many things. You could probably throw apples at, I don't even know if that's possible or not, but I wouldn't be surprised. But because I never tried it personally, but it's just crazy. Like, there's so many ways you can go about handling any situation in this world. And that's something they definitely need to like keep around. And I like that. But the idea of, the whole shape-shifting thing, kind of like that, for each dungeon, it was like the mainline ones were really good, and even like the shrines, they had a lot of build on that as well. So the whole game focused on that like severely, and I loved that. It was a good critical thing you needed. It was like crucial to the gameplay, and that's great. But it's like I don't want them to just go back. I know it's kind of, again, a little off topic here real quick, but I'm just gonna say, just going back to an old formula like Twilight Princess style, or like like even you mentioned A Link Between Worlds, for me it won't feel the same if they do that, because you're expecting, like, it's like, how can they top this?
Exactly. It almost feels like if they went back to like older Zelda games, it would almost feel like a step backwards. And,
right, yeah.
I feel like you mentioned with the shrines there, and I think the shrines are actually brilliant, and I think they need to keep at least something like that around.
Oh yeah.
With Breath of the Wild being such a big game, the dungeons, even for Zelda standards, these are actually pretty small dungeons. They don't take that long. They take longer than the shrines, but they don't take that long. And I think with Breath of the Wild, with it being such a big game, the dungeons take up such a small fraction of the time spent playing that game, that if that was the only like dungeon-like gameplay that took place in Breath of the Wild, I think I'd be kind of dissatisfied. But because there's all these bite-sized puzzles scattered throughout the world, that's awesome. I love that. It's just it's just enough of a puzzle to like, okay, make your brain think for a little bit, but you're not like brain dead by the time you're done.
Yeah, you're not stressing out over like you would be normally. And that's how I was like with a lot of dungeons. Like in older Zelda games, I'm not gonna lie, I used to rage quit a lot because at the time it was like, oh, this is so new to me, and I didn't really. I was stupid, That's literally what it boiled down to. I'm like, I'm lazy with this, and I don't want to look up a guide, but I don't want to just sit here and think for hours on end for something that's probably right in front of me to solve. So I'm done, and I go back to like the next day or something, or But I mean, yeah, like the whole there's small puzzles that get your mind going for a minute, and then you're done. Some are really simple, some are really complicated, and I love that. And there's so like even the simple ones though, they're complex in their own way. Like it's you have to think, and a lot of them, like I said, use the Sheikah Slate. So either you're sitting there running around trying to find some kind of item to use on whatever, or you have to use magnesis to drag something over. There's just so many different ways that you can go about handling things, and even some shrines have different solutions. Like the same one you can do different ways, whether that's like glitching the system, or it's just like not the system itself, but like the game, or you can like build upon whatever, climb, you can do all kinds of stuff, and that's one of the most appealing things ever to me. I love that. So, and
that is, sorry, I'll let you have your turn in a sec, but that is another thing I want them to keep in this game too, is having multiple solutions to things. Like, I don't know what's more impressive, like Breath of the Wild itself, or the lengths that people go to break this game. And
oh, dude,
like,
I know.
It's crazy. Like, and I wouldn't call this breaking the game, but one of my just like gee whiz moments that I had when I was playing the game was there was a certain shrine where you have to, so there's like electric like pipes on the floor, and you have to move these metal boxes around with magnesis, because there's parts on the pipes that are broken, And there's an electric current going through these pipes. You have to get it all the way to the other side of the room to hit these two switches to unlock a door for you to go through.
Okay, I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, and you have to use these boxes to kind of like bridge the gaps between these broken pipes. But I couldn't figure out where to put them. I didn't know where the right spots were. I was like, maybe I'm missing a box, like maybe there's something I'm missing. But what I did was I dropped a bunch of my metal weapons on the ground, and I channeled the electricity through those, and it totally worked.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry,
I was done. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's crazy, yeah, just like that though, and stuff like that you find out by accident even sometimes, and it's so cool. It's just like an aha kind of moment, and then you're like, oh, how can I use this to my advantage in the future, whatever. But there's just so much that is here, and I absolutely adore it. It's just like there's endless possibilities to an endless world practically, and it's like the coolest thing ever, for real.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, what is your next thing that you'd like to see in the next Zelda game?
And the next Zelda game, I really think, I know this is kind of basic, but the bosses from, these dungeons, the mainline ones, I think they were spectacular. Like, all of them. I like the idea of flurry rushing. I'm not sure if that was a thing that was in other ones.
No, this is the first time we've seen it.
Okay, I thought so, yeah. So, doing something like that, that's a very simple thing. But it's like it's the coolest thing ever. And, I mean, to have bosses that will go to as far extents as to just obliterate you, in one hit is a very satisfying yet suspenseful thing. And I love that feeling. Like a lot of the old Zelda bosses, like Yugo from not Breath of the Wild, The Link Between Worlds.
Yes.
I'm not gonna say in detail what that's about, but I thought that was relatively easy,
Yeah, this is the first Zelda game, at least in a very long time, that I have felt challenged by the bosses, but challenged at all. I would say the only other Zelda game that's even up to this par of difficulty is the original Legend of Zelda. I think that's I think the difficulty in that, while it is a difficult game, I think part of the difficulty comes from it just being like, they were still figuring out video games at that point in time.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're totally right. Breath of the Wild, the bosses, and even some of the enemies, they prove to be a real challenge, and they can one-shot you in one hit. They will mess you up. But finally, overcoming them, figuring out a way to beat them, or maybe making the right food for you to eat to face them, it's a very satisfying experience.
And there's a lot of times where you have to grind and just go find food to gear up for something like that, And I mean, even everybody knows Ganon's the final boss in this game, like a lot of other Zelda games.
Yeah.
But the way they went about it, that was actually my first time actually beating Ganon, because I beat something else before that, I'll put it like that, and then Ganon pops up. I'm like, oh wait, I thought I was done, and that was a whole nother layer of suspense, and I'm like, oh, and as a final boss, the final boss, I feel like it was kind of easy. I felt like it was more epic than it was, like suspenseful or anything.
Yeah.
Just kind of finish it off.
Yeah. I guess there's an asterisk by like, I like the bosses in this game, whether it be the mini bosses that you find in the world or the dungeons, but I will agree with you there that the final boss was, like, the presentation of it was super, super epic. Like, you were taking down this thing that was going to take over the world. But the actual, gameplay involved in that final boss was not that difficult. And I'm trying to think now of a final Zelda boss that is, actually given me troubles, other than, the original Legend of Zelda. Because if you can figure out the pattern, you're pretty much good to go, because they won't deal that much damage to you. And by the time you actually get to Ganon in this game, you're probably, your armor's pretty good, you probably got a lot of heart containers and all that. So that is something, I guess, I would like to see a little bit of an improvement on, is the difficulty of the final boss, because I really didn't feel threatened by Calamity Ganon. Again, it was a very epic fight, I loved the presentation of it, but I guess I would like to see it just be a little more difficult.
Right. And I feel like there's always some kind of pre-evolution before Ganon though,
Yeah.
And the one before this one, I thought that was epic. How in a way it meshed all the bosses that we already had, beforehand. It just kind of all bundled up in one, and I like that, And to think, I think if I had to estimate, I think maybe 15 times I probably died before I actually beat it.
Oh, really?
And Yeah, the last time I actually went, well, it wasn't the last time. It was like I lost the first time just to kind of see what I was dealing with.
Okay.
And then I left Hyrule Castle to go get food, get equipment, whatever, because I was out of arrows in case I ever needed them, just trying to gear up for what was potentially going to happen. And, once I got back, I realized, oh, I can't respawn back at this spot. So I had to climb all the way back up the castle again. And, that was not fun. But it was a lot easier this time around because you kind of get a grasp for what's going on. But my point is, I took a few tries and kind of learned the system and, you got them. And then that's like and then Zelda's like, uh-oh, there's Ganon. I'm like, hold on, what? Like, I thought that was it. And I'm like, it's just the whole thing in itself, though. I feel like it was created to just be like the final blow, you did it kind of thing. Not to be like, oh, wow, you're so powerful. But the whole world meshed together with this final boss at the very end was like sealing the darkness away, obviously. So that's what it resembled to me instead of actually, oh, hey, this is going to be a challenge.
And again, I totally think they hit that out of the park with the epicness and just the satisfaction of taking down to what this world is the most dangerous thing there. So I totally agree with you there. I think it's my turn now, right?
Yep.
Okay, so this one might be a little controversial, but hear me out. So
I think I know what you're gonna say.
So I would actually like to see more permanent items in Breath of the Wild. Now what I mean by this is, so I get what they were doing with Breath of the Wild, where it gives you all the runes at the beginning of the game, like Magnesis, the bombs, the stasis, all that stuff, and then you can just go crazy in this world. And I think that that's something that should stay in the next game, having this toolbox that you get at the beginning of the game for you to go nuts with. But I will say, I kind of wish that there were more permanent items given to you throughout the game that were not used necessarily to progress, but more so for convenience sake, so that you can keep that open-endedness. Like, I don't want you to get the hook shot and then be required to use the hook shot to get to the next dungeon, for example. But rather, like, say you're climbing up a really tall cliff and you're like, oh man, I don't know if I'm going to reach the top of that. Oh, hey, I've got my hook shot. I can hook onto this tree at the top of the cliff. And just kind of use it for convenience sake, but also have these items be, make them interactive with the enemies. Maybe you could steal, like, a Bokoblin's shield from him or something from far away, or something like that. I would love for it to be, like, I would love for you to be able to, like, have a toolbox of items at the beginning, but also kind of be rewarded with these permanent items throughout your quest, maybe through a really big side quest, maybe through a story objective. But that's something I was kind of missing from this game, is like, oh, you get the hook shot now, or you get the you know what I mean.
Yeah, I got you. And even if there was some kind of like, just kind of build up on that for a minute, like stores or shops you can go and be like, oh, did you want to upgrade this to be, not, in a sense it would be permanent, but it wouldn't be worded like that in the game, obviously. It would just be like, all powerful, mighty, whatever. So it just has some kind of title that means, you're not going to lose this.
Yeah.
It's not going to break. And I do like that idea too, but at the same time, I actually really like trying to go the idea of losing weapons because you use them so much or use them so harshly, is great to me because it just builds suspense. And I'm an adrenaline junkie, so having that aspect in the game is a really cool thing for me. But I feel like for more basic items like the hook shot or the master sword, once you get that, it would be very good to have if you could use those in like certain areas. Just it would be like a cheat if you just had it the whole time. But I guess in older Zelda games they did have it like that though.
Yeah. And like,
so
you actually brought up a good point there with the whole, like, go to a shop and maybe use the materials that you use to like upgrade a weapon or something. That's something that they actually did in Skyward Sword. You were able to collect materials and you were able to upgrade your shields, your slingshot, your arrows, like all that stuff. And that's something that I actually, I never thought about it, but I actually like that. Maybe like to increase its durability or its power. Because I have like items out the wazoo that I have no idea what to do with. And that would actually be something that would be pretty cool. Like, if there was like a crafting mechanic in the game.
Right. And there is a lot of things you could do with that too, I mean, just in general, like the item system in Breath of the Wild was even something similar to that. You could upgrade the Sheikah Slate items, or, powers, whatever you want to call them. So, I mean, still kind of building in line with the series itself. It's not completely new, but it is an idea, You know,
Yeah.
definitely something that you could do. So I don't know. That's a good idea though.
And one other thing, one other item that I had in mind, like when I was just thinking of permanent, well, actually two other items I had in mind. Like, yeah, the hook shot's like one of my favorite items ever. That's amazing. But
Yeah.
I would love to have a wind-based object because I hate how one of my inventory slots is always a Korok leaf, so I can use rafts whenever I need to. I would love to just have like a permanent item like the Gust Jar from Minish Cap or the Gust Bellows from Skyward Sword. I don't know if you played. I know you didn't play Skyward Sword. I don't know if you played Minish Cap, but basically
Nope.
they function the same. You can suck in things and you can blow out air, and it's just a lot of fun to use. It can be used on enemies. It can be used on the environment. I would love to see something like that, like just a wind-based item. I think that has a lot of potential in an open-air game. And an item that you can use to dig with. The Zelda series has had plenty of games where you've had a shovel. The Minish Cap, you have the mole mitts. I would love to be able to like have certain areas where I could dig for stuff. I think that digging is something that could be like, I just feel like with a big open world game like this, being able to actually interact with like the earth, like with the ground, is just something that I feel like I missed it. Like, I don't know. There were some points where I'd love to be able to dig here or something.
Right. And I don't know. I mean, just in terms of things like that, you know, there's just a lot of different questions you might have too, just in terms of like what you're able to do with that kind of option, you know. Just I don't know though. Like, I don't know. That's a good point.
Like I will say this right now. Like any complaints I have with the game are extremely minuscule. Like these are just like wish list things. I absolutely adore Breath of the Wild, but these are some things that I would be happy to see. But I guess that's kind of it for me on items. But what did you have something else? Yeah,
I was actually gonna say before you actually mentioned items, I thought you were gonna mention voice acting.
Oh, okay.
So that was another thing I was gonna mention actually, because in a way it is kind of. I mean, I've seen people that like it. I've seen people that despise it. But you know, the thing is, you've never heard Zelda talk, and Link, you never heard him talk, obviously, because it's Link. But you know, to think that, oh, you know, Zelda has an English accent, you know, it's like a lot of people were like, oh, that's not how Zelda sounds. How do you know? Maybe that's how she sounded from the beginning. You just never knew, you know. And it's Nintendo's interpretation of how she sounds, you know. And honestly, at the beginning, I was kind of like, you know, it sounds kind of like an old lady or something. But as time went on, you know, she has this sincere, innocent tone to her. Zelda does.
Yeah.
And I love that, you know. She just sounds nice and she sounds fun as a person, you know. And like just the emotion in her whenever things are happening and these scenes we talked about earlier, you know, it's great to kind of hear the emotion in that, because the voice actor for her, you know, I don't even know who it is, but she did a great job. I know it's like somebody, obviously, but you know, I don't know. But like in terms of, you know, the characters themselves and everything, I think overall they did a very good job casting everybody. If I had to change anybody though, I think Yunobo was a little bit kind of, you know, on the lower side of the best possible outcome, if you will. You know, I liked him as a character, but he just seemed like not childish, just like, you know, a little clueless as to what was going on. I don't know.
I will agree with you there. I quite like the voice acting in this game. For the most part, I think it was really well done. That's actually the one that was like the one exception I was thinking of, though, was Yunobo. He's a Goron, and Gorons are, of course, these big, burly monsters, for lack of a better word. And he just has a very, like, I guess, like
playful tone.
Yeah, like it sounds very like rookie-ish. Like I don't know. I don't know what the right word is. But I agree with you on Zelda. She's a very awesome mix of like orthodox, but like she can be goofy at the same time. Like this is by far my favorite incarnation of Zelda. But another voice actor that I really liked was Revali, the Rito. They just did a very good job of kind of giving him this pompous, cocky attitude. Like the voice totally fit in with that. And voice acting is something that I think needs to stay. I like now that it's here, I don't want it to go away. Like I think that's something that like this is one of my complaints with Skyward Sword. That was a very story-driven based game, and that game would have benefited so much from voice acting. Now that it's in Breath of the Wild, I want it. I want it like as the standard from now on.
And you know, I know this is a little off topic real quick, but you know, the Switch has the infrared port on the blue or on the right Joy-Con now. You know, what if that was for a remake of Skyward Sword? You know, I've heard people talk about that too. And they're like, oh, hey, this one has voice acting too, boys. You know, like there's a lot of possibilities with the Switch in general. You know, it has a lot of stuff that it can happen with. You know, you just make things go. But in terms of like voice acting in general, though, I mean, yeah, I loved it too. But I mean, you have a good point about, you know, I think we kind of agreed on that though, about how he just kind of, you know, for lack of a better word, you just mentioned earlier, like a rookie kind of thing.
Yeah.
But overall though, yeah, and Rivali I really like too, and you know, also who was it? Oh geez, I think, you know, Impa. Oh geez.
Yeah.
You know, okay, yeah, I didn't mean to straight up say that name, but I don't know. That's kind of a spoiler in itself, I guess, isn't it?
Not really. Impa's in quite a few Zelda games, so don't worry about it.
Plus, she's like in the main storyline, I guess, kind of. So,
yeah,
you know, she's there. But anyway, my point is, I wish she would have had an actual voice instead of, you know, kind of just kind of mumbles, if you will.
I thought she was voiced in a few scenes.
Did she? In Breath of the Wild?
I think. Again, I don't want to get into the spoilers, but I think she actually is in one of the trailers.
Really?
I could be wrong. I could be wrong. There's a lot about this game. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure she got voiced.
See, I don't remember that. Maybe it did. I don't know. Maybe I missed it. But in the whole game or thing, I didn't hear that either.
To be fair, every character only gets like 2 or 3 like actual like scenes where they're voiced.
Unless you're Zelda,
yeah.
You know. But I don't know. Maybe I just missed it. I don't know. I don't know how I could have. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, all I remember was from the trailers there was Zelda and there was the old man.
Again, I could be wrong. I'll go back and watch it again after this. But
all right. Well, yeah, we'll figure it out
anyway,
later.
A little off topic. I have one more thing that I would like to see kind of improved in Breath of the Wild, and that is the side quests. I really like. Yeah, I understand that there's some of them are still going to be kind of fetch questy. That's not exactly something that I think is going to change. But what I do want is for them to be more rewarding. With the exception of a few, I didn't really feel that compelled to do the side quests in this game. There are some that I won't get into specifics, but you do get some pretty good stuff, or some like pretty rewarding like events that happen. For example, like there's this one side quest where you have to gather a bunch of different characters throughout the game, and it results in this just awesome like coming together, like this awesome ceremony. It results in actually a new place being added to the map. So I thought that was really cool how it was done. But other than that, there's some really just bland side quests in this game, and you might get like, I don't know, you might get a meal out of it, or you might get like a collectible that you can find other places in the world. So I just didn't feel that compelled to do the side quests.
Right. And I've never really been that kind of person to go and like completely obliterate the game and 100% it like that. But I mean, not to say doing a single side quest is going to do that for you, but you know, I think I maybe did literally maybe 3 at the max.
Really?
Like I didn't focus on that, you know. I was just trying to find shrines, and that's like the whole exploration factor I mentioned earlier, you know. I was trying to get through the story, but I was like, you know, I need to do something more than this to get hearts, to get all this stuff, to get weapons, and etc. So I just started going to shrines, and I completely like avoided most of the side quests. Towards the end, I did do one at one of the tech labs, but that's beside the point.
Okay.
But, yeah, so you know, it was just something that I thought, you know, it's not as compelling as it could be, as you said. But yeah, I agree with that.
And that's a good point, because like the shrines and the Korok seeds and like just like finding stuff in the environment, I thought that was exploration done completely right. But the side quests is kind of like a piece of the exploration, or like the openness of Breath of the Wild. And I think that's like the one part of the just like the things to do in the game that I don't think was done quite as well as the other things. But again, with how awesome the side quests are and how awesome like the environmental puzzles are, I can't really complain too much.
Right, I agree with that. But I don't know. I mean, just overall, the game itself is incredible. I mean, yeah, like you said, it's kind of more like a wish list than anything. But you know, for a game like this being my first open world, there's not really anything I can really compare it to. Like, oh, I wish it were more like this game where you can do this, or you know, whatever. But yeah. So I don't know. It's just great though.
Breath of the Wild is something very special. I think this is going to be a game that is going to be referenced to and looked back on, and have games compared to it for years and years to come. Like when they were marketing this game that like this is going to be as big of a shift as Ocarina was back in the 90s, they weren't joking. This game is amazing.
Yeah, it
That's
is.
all I pretty much had to say. Do you have anything else?
Actually, no. I'm pretty much on the same page as you. I think we covered what we could. You know, most of everything in the game.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Tell the people where they can find you at.
All right. Well, my YouTube channel is MasonOfDelfino. I make a lot of Nintendo videos and stuff. So yeah, right there.
Awesome. And thank you guys so much for listening. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel and follow me on Twitter. Links for those are in the description. And make sure you check out Mason's channel. Some really awesome stuff. And let us know in the comments down below. Let us know what you thought about Breath of the Wild, what you would like to see stay the same, what you would like to see changed, all that good stuff. So for now, I'll see you guys later. Stay tuned to the channel for lots of Nintendo goodness. Peace out, guys. Bye.